Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm pleased to bring you the Bruno Giacosa 2014 Falletto Barolo. My viewers and subscribers know that Barolo is an area of interest for me to drink for the last 2 years. Last year I drank a lot of different Barolo wines, but I thought this year I needed to drink some of the more iconic Barolo wines and also some older vintages just to kind of round out my experience. And I think I've done that by and large, and I think I'm pretty comfortable. By the end of the year I can probably move on to another region because I think I have some understanding of the Barolo region at this point. So Bruno Giacosa is a very famous name in the Piedmont region. Started out as a Barbaresco producer, and he's really famous for his Barbarescos. I'll talk about that in another day when we start to do Barbarescos, but extended his fame to Barolo region. So let's talk a little bit about him. I think he was born in 1929, and he's just a legendary winemaker. But I mean, he just does things that more normal other winemakers do. He does 2 to 3 week fermentation in stainless steel at moderate temperatures, and then 3 to 4 years aging in French oak boaty. That's not unusual. I think what happened is that he actually grew up in the Piedmont region, learning from his father or great-grandfather. And what his really specialty is to learn how to select fruit. I don't know if you can really teach that. It's kind of passed down from generation to generation, and it's also a feel. And I think that's what separates him from other winemakers. He's just got some type of feel or some type of association with the land. And some people have it, some people don't. I think it's just a God-given talent somewhat. And he had it, and he was able to make some really, really spectacular and legendary wines. Unfortunately, he suffered a stroke in 2006, and it limited his time in the winery. And so I would say, even this wine, the influence is not as much as some of the earlier wines. He died in 2018. Bruno Giacosa started out as a Barbaresco producer. And as he had to expand, his popularity grew, he had to expand his grape varietals, and then he went to starting to, in his 1960s and 70s, purchasing grapes in Barolo. And that's how he started in Barbaresco too. He started purchasing grapes, eventually made enough money to start to buy up vineyards. And that's very similar in Barolo. That's what he did. He just was really good at winemaking, his wines commanded great prices. And then in 1982, he actually purchased this winery or this vineyard called Falletto. And this is in the Serralunga d'Alba region. And it's probably one of the most iconic vineyards out there. This is what they call their white label, which is kind of entry, if you want to call it entry. He has a red label, which is Reserva, which is ridiculous. It's also probably priced 2 or 3 times of this. And those Reservas are just legendary. He probably makes 3 vintages of that every decade. And this is a little bit more common. So the common folk can have this, even though it's getting up there in terms of pricing. But this is already an exceptional bottling. It's not a Reserva, it's just a regular Barolo. There are 2 labels of this. There's the Falletto, and then there's arguably a better white label called Rocche del Falletto, which is south facing. And so that might be a little bit better because sometimes that will also become a red bottling also. So about 15 to 20,000 bottles of this is made a year, so not a lot. The site is about 13 hectares, which is about 32 acres. And it is really known for producing long-lived wines. Falletto is a vineyard that's southwest facing on steep slopes of calcareous clay soils in kind of an amphitheater type shape. And generally speaking, Falletto wines are austere, elegant, complex with nose, and excellent structure with suave tannins. And I think you do need age with these type of wines. 2014 was not the greatest vintage in the world in Barolo. It was very mixed in terms of the weather, but great wineries or great winemakers know how to make wine. So it's kind of nice. The other thing is nice is that it's generally a little bit more approachable in leaner years. And so, you know, we're only about, you know, 10 years away. So in general, Bruno Giacosa Fallettos would last, you'd want to drink them a little bit later than this, but because it's kind of what they call an off vintage, I think it is quite a nice time to drink it. Bruno Giacosa passed away in 2018, and he's succeeded by his daughter Bruna, and then a enologist, which was his protege, Dante Scaglione. And so they continue on his work in Barolo and Barbaresco. Let's view the wine. So this is the cork, very clean, 2014 as it should be, but perfect condition. This is the label, Barolo Falletto, and it's Aziento Agricola de Bruno Giacosa. And this is their white label, not much on the back. And as you can see, the wine color, Barolo is always kind of brick red, almost a clay type brownish. So that's partly the color of Nebbiolo grape, but partly also the age of this wine. A little bit about this wine. Again, it's the white label, so it's not a reserve, it's a regular Barolo from the Falletto vineyard in the Serralunga d'Alba. I've had this open now for the second day, and what a difference it makes. So I tasted last night with steak, popped one open, and I believe I did not decant because I knew I was going to drink it the next day, but drank it over the course of 3 hours. Really tight, good wine, but really tight. I opened it today, I put it in the fridge, and so it's been overnight in the fridge, opened it again today, got it back up to room temperature. What a difference. It's a different wine totally. So this is sometimes the idea, tasting it a number of times. So 2014, you'd think it's already got a lot of age. For a Falletto, probably it's not enough age. But overnight, now it's got a lot more oxygen to it. It's beautiful. And now it's really, comparing that wine to the wine that I had last night is night and day. And so this is way more representative of the wine. And if I had drank all the wine last night, I would have missed out on how good this wine is. And probably last night, if I drink it, I would call it a 90, 91 point wine. Now I'm looking at it, it's probably a 94, 95 point wine. So let's go through the tasting notes and smells of this wine. So on the smell, classic Barolo, very aromatic in terms of floral aromas, violets, lilies, black plums, a little bit of raisiness on it, a little bit of leaves, a little bit of herbaceousness on it. Very classic Barolo type aromas. Again, beautiful taste. You get that vibrant red cherry, but not too tart, but you get a little bit of tartness, good acidity. Then you get that herbaceousness of Barolo. I almost want to compare it to a, in terms of the feel on the mouth and the aftertaste, like an Amarone without the fruit. You know how Amarone is very sweet? This has got not as much sweetness, but it's got that kind of austere kind of aftertaste to it. Very herbal, almost slightly medicinal, a little bit of tobacco and tea leaves. But the fruit is so nice on this. It's got that red cherry, but you know how red cherry can be tart to a point where it's too acidic and it's kind of like sour? It's not sour cherry, but it's ripe cherries, and it's got the nice acidity of a fresh cherry, but not mushy. It's really difficult to describe. It's not burgundy type red cherry, but it's very distinctive, and that's what I would like to see with a Barolo, kind of a red cherry and then some black plum underneath, and then some herbaceousness and some kind of tea leaves or tobacco at the end. This is really quite prototypical Barolo and everything you'd ask for in a Barolo. So if you ever have this wine, the Falletto, and you don't like it after, you know, good aeration, I think you probably won't like Barolo as a wine. Barolo to me is not heavy. It's still quite light. It's not very tannic. It's, I would say, medium tannins, medium plus tannins. The acidity level is good, but the herbaceous nature of this is very nice, and that floral component to it is very nice. So I mean, this to me is fairly prototypical Barolo, and I think with Falletto in particular, if you don't see this type of floral aroma, this herbaceousness, this kind of almost tobacco or leafy nature to it, I don't think you've aired it long enough. I'm convinced now that these Falletto wines all have this. It's just a matter of letting them express themselves. And sometimes, again, what I find is if you drink a Barolo too early, you don't get the full expression of Barolo. You just get tannins. And that's what people think. It's just tannins and really sharp cherry flavors, and maybe some black plums. You don't get this subtlety. Oh, it's just like very aromatic right now. And it's it doesn't taste or smell like any other wine. You know, maybe Barbaresco would be very similar, but it doesn't smell like Burgundy. It doesn't smell like Bordeaux. It's very soft, and that's why people, I know it's not Pinot, but that's why it kind of compares to Pinot in terms of it's very aromatic. It's different aromas, but it's very aromatic, and the taste profile is nice. It's got a lot of intensity of flavor without a lot of tannin. I don't think the tannins are that heavy when you get them resolved, and that's why Barolo is so nice. And in tasting the better Barolos this year, or the more aged Barolos and the more what we call trophy Barolos, this would be very comparable to the Monprevado that I had, the 2010. And if you ask me which one I'd like better, I think initially I would say the Monprevado, but as I taste this wine, this gets better and better. I'm not sure. It would be a real toss-up. If you gave me these two bottles, both are fine, fine bottles. Again, I'm going to go with 90. I think the Wine Spectator rating is 94 points. I think this is a 95-point wine. The more I drink it, the more I like it. And it's beautiful in terms of drinking these wines, this one and the Monprevado, really gives me a better idea of what I'm looking for Barolo. And that's why for me it's very key to drink trophy or gold standard wines, because you can drink a ton of Barolo that's young and they're really nice, but you don't really catch the bug until you taste prototypical Barolos that are the standard and that are aged correctly. Then you can go backwards and say, oh, this is young, but I know it'll get there. These wines are just at their prime and just drinking magnificently. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy drinking.